Welcome back to part 2 of Vehicle Design course. In this session, we'll be focusing on building the tire mechanism, one of the most detailed and challenging part of the model. So let's dive right in and start grading. So far, we completed the basic structure. Now, let's make it more refined and mechanical. I'm selecting these two cylinders, switching to front view and setting the cutter type to box. Let's draw a thin rectangle covering the entire model and cut it. Perfect. Now switching to side view, I'll start by adding a cube. Let's scale it down and move it towards the back, somewhere around the middle. Then scale it on the X and hold shift for precise adjustment. Now I'll move to the right in between the two cylinders and scale it down on the Z. It's not perfectly placed, so I'll slightly move it backward and scale it to fill the empty space. That already adds some depth to the wheel, but let's make it more mechanical. I'll duplicate the shape, move it further away and scale it down on the Z. Then rotate it on X-axis, then bring it slightly upward. Now duplicate again, rotate it on the opposite direction and move to the left. That's a bit of shading issues, so I'll make this one slightly thinner. That's much better. Next, I'll duplicate the bottom piece and move it to the next wheel. Before cloning all them, let's refine it a bit. I'll apply scale and go to edge mode. Select these two edges and these two as well, and run a bevel. Then press M and choose merge by distance to clean it out. Now for some detail, I'll switch circle cutter and draw a small circle here. Extrude it inward slightly and hit enter. Apply the boolean and go to face mode. Insert the face, extrude along normal and finish it with a small chamfer. Alright, let's mirror it over to the other side. Now to build the full wheel setup, I'll just select these two, duplicate them and place them across all the wheels. It's simple. Duplicate, position and adjust if needed. For the last three wheels, we'll connect the final together like this. Next, select the bottom plate and position it between all the wheels. Rotate and align it based on your wheel placement. Once that's done for the bottom, we'll repeat the same process for the top wheels. Instead of rotating manually, just right click and choose mirror, then choose global Z axis. For the top, I'll position it between the second and third wheels. Then duplicate again, move to the left, and for the last wheel, we'll leave the final one alone. Now let's start adding the plates for the top wheels. Next, we need to mirror the entire setup to the other side. So first, remove any mirror modifier for the mesh on the left. Then box select everything on the right, hold shift, select the main body and mirror it. Perfect. Finally, let's connect the wheels to the main body. Select this wheel, insert, then extrude it inward. Insert one more, then extrude outward. It's not fitting perfectly, so let's build the inner face, insert again, smaller this time and extrude all the way out. Still not perfect, no problem. Just move the main body slightly forward. Now that fits better. I'll go to edge mode, add a loop cut and bevel it slightly. And extrude the face along the normals. Scale it down on the X to shape it and then add another loop cut. Bevel it again and extrude it out just a touch. That gives us a nice layered surface. Alright, let's take a look at how it's turning out so far. It actually came out pretty good. Now let me delete this cylinder, we don't need it anymore, and I'll select the cube along with a new detailed cylinder just we created. Then let's move them to the right. And then mirror everything over the global void. Make sure to place it carefully so both ends align perfectly. Now that we successfully connect the big wheels to the main body, it's time to work with the small wheel mechanism. For that, I'm adding a cube, scaling it down, then extending its size along the Z and also on the Y. Let's move to the left and positioning it properly and make it a little thinner. Now we'll refine the shape. I'm selecting these two edges and run a bevel. Then I'll merge by distance. And we can mirror these changes to keep it symmetrical. Next, switch to front view. Move the whole thing back and apply shade smooth. Then in side view, duplicate this rectangle, move to the right and duplicate it once more. Push it back slightly like this. Now give it a bit of rotation and adjust the position to sit nicely in the middle. We'll duplicate again and move it up to align the wheels. Fix the rotation if needed and then one last duplicate to the right. Now that we almost complete the wheel mechanism, let's connect everything together. The wheels, the plate, the main body. First, I'm selecting this 4 piece and apply scale. Then in face mode, select these 4 faces and the front one as well and run a small chamfer to smooth it out. Next up, let's start building the connection. I'll place my cursor here and add a cylinder. Scale it down, rotate it on the Y and move it slightly upward. Let's scale the cylinder down on X, apply the scale and jump into face mode. Grab the front face and run a chamfer. Then insert it slightly with I, duplicate that face and extrude it out to give some thickness. Now I'm selecting a few faces on the left and extruding them, just to create some basic structure, something like this. Next, I'll duplicate this face again, move it down, then scale it smaller and bring it closer. Then extrude it until it reaches this level. Now select the bottom face and add a loop cut. And then extrude that face outward. Something like this. I'll isolate this piece for a second and jump into edge mode. And straighten it using N1 cutter. Just a clean cut. Then back to object mode. Apply the boolean and clean up the geometry. Now I'll select this edge and give it a bevel. And for the bottom edge, instead of a bevel, let's go with a chamfer. That gives us a much sharper and mechanical feel. Let's move this face slightly on the X and add a chamfer. Actually, let's undo that and select this face as well. Now we'll run a chamfer together to keep things even. I'll insert this face, extrude it slightly inside and give it a clean bevel. Then select the edge loop around it and add a small chamfer to finish the detail. Alright, now I'm going to start adding some detail. So I'll set the cutter type to circle and draw one circle here. Then press E to extrude the cut. It's not perfectly centered, so I'll press G and adjust the position a bit. That's a nice clean cut. Next, let's switch to face mode. Select this inner face and extrude it outward. Then I'll add a loop cut, slide it forward a little and select this entire face loop. Now extrude along normal to give some depth. Once that's done, we'll duplicate the detail and place it across the wheels. Now you might notice that it's sitting too far inside the body, so we just need to push it forward slightly. Same thing for this one, I'll bring it out as well. It actually has a bevel, so we can simply rotate it a bit to fit better. Or maybe you can just simply delete this. I'll redo the part later, if needed. Now that we connected the plates to the body, let's move on and connect the plates to the wheels. I'll start by selecting the bottom wheels and switch to face mode. Select this face and insert it slightly. Then extrude it outward just a little. Next, I'll grab a few bottom faces and extrude them out as well. Now select all and press P and choose separate by selection. Alright, let's add a cylinder. Scaling it down nice and small and rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis and move it backward a bit so it sits nicely at the center. Then apply Shade Auto Smooth. Next, select this new piece and let's clean up the geometry. I grab these two edges and try to bevel. It's not working. Okay. Looks like we need to fill the missing faces, so let's select all and press F to make it a single face. Now run a bevel again. Still not working. Alright, let's clean it up using machine tool. Wait, what the heck is going on here? Yeah, there it is. An extra vertex adding inside. So that's what's stopping us from bevel. So let's dissolve the vertex and now try to run a bevel. Now we mirror the changes to the other side. And then select these two objects and apply them across all wheels. Once you have done that, repeat the same process for the top wheels. Now let's select everything we made so far and mirror it over to the other side. Next, I'm going to enable the cutter from the collection and move this cutter up to the top, then scaling it slightly on the X and hide from the viewport. Now, go ahead and smart apply everything. Jump in edge mode, select all those faces and separate them. Let's apply the mirror modifier next and back in edge mode. Select these edges and run a bevel to soften them a bit. Then switch to object mode. And I'm going to add a solidify modifier to this. Increase the thickness around -0.07. I'll move this modifier to the bottom of the stack and then slightly adjust the thickness until we get the perfect balance. You can scale the whole thing up just a bit like this and maybe move it down to fill those gaps more evenly. That looks nice. Alright, the front looks a bit flat, so I'm going to add a small chamfer to add some curvature. Now we got a big spacing at the front and that's exactly where the defense builds will go. So I'm going to add a cylinder, rotate it on the Y and scale it down. Move to the center, then extend the size on the X so it stretches across nicely. Move it up, tweak the scale a little and apply Shade Auto Smooth. Switch to face mode, select both faces and run a small chamfer. I'm selecting a few faces on the back side and extrude them. The default direction is fine here. Now move the face down, pull it back, then move it down again, just like that. Perfect. Apply a limited dissolve to clean up the unnecessary geometry, then add a loop cut. Give it a bevel and extrude along normals. Push it slightly inside and next insert the face and perform one more extrusion for depth. Then scale it down on the X to tighten the form. Add another loop cut, run a bevel and extrude it inside again to reinforce the depth. Now select those two edge loop and run a small chamfer. That instantly adds some visual appealing to the front. Makes the whole design looks much more mechanical and aggressive. I'll add a loop cut. Then grab the knife tool and connect these edges together to close the gap. Now switch to object mode and mirror those changes across. With those edges still selected, I'm going to slide them forward and nudge them up a bit. But before I move anything, I'll shrink the proportionality circle so that the movement is tight and controlled. Then bring the edge up for a clean transition. Then to make it really smooth, I'm going to run a small bevel. Time to build some pipe. Add a plane, place it near the model and switch to vertex mode. And merge all vertices at the center so you have a single vertex. From there, extrude on X, move the top vertices a little on Y, then extrude on the Y again. Pull one vertices to the left and bring another one forward, so the profile reads like a pipe. Select all vertices and run a vertex bevel to round the shape. Convert that mesh into a curve, then open the curve properties. Go to geometry and increase the depth to give some pipe thickness. Hit shade smooth. Push the pipe back a touch and down a bit, then mirror it over to the other side so we got a matching support. These will be holding the front blade later, so make sure the placement feels natural. Don't forget to enable free cap in the curve settings so the pipe ends are closed. Perfect. Now start the front block. Add a cube, scale it down and position at the center. Then scale it up on the Y and extend it on the X to form the front structure. Now, I'm using box cutter to start forming the main shape. So, I've set the cutter type to n-gon and I'm drawing a decline line, forming a step shape like this, just like that, and cut it. Next, I'm cutting off this sharp point. Then I'm performing another cut following the same angle on the other side. Let's mirror this detail to the right side to keep it symmetrical. Now I'm smart applying, then select this face and bring it slightly forward to give some depth. To make it a bit more detailed, I'm drawing another shape here and cut it. Once that's done, I'm smart applying again and switch to face mode. Now I'm selecting these both edges and give them a nice bevel. Then I'm selecting these two edges and also the inner edges and run a bevel there as well. At this point, it started looking a bit too heavy, so I'm going to scale this down on the Z and move it slightly upward. To make the form look more dynamic, I'll rotate it slightly on the X-axis and finally bring it closer to the pipe. Just adjust the position like that and there we go. Now we place the cursor right here and then add a cylinder. Let's move to the end of the pipe, scale it down and adjust the position so it's aligned nicely. Then scale it on the Z to give it some height. At the end, I can see a bit of mess happening at the back, probably because of the bevel. So, what I'm going to do is draw an edge using knife tool. Right now, all the edges are connecting to a single point and that's why the issue is happening, so I'll give them a separated vertices instead. Next, let's select these unwanted edges and simply dissolve them. I'm only keeping one edge loop at the top and remove the rest. Now, these vertices have shifted slightly, so I'll manually select each one and bring them forward to fix the shape. It's still a bit messy, so I'll switch to edge mode and dissolve a few more edges. I'm actually going to dissolve the middle edges and delete everything else, leaving just one clean edge. Now, we select this one and run a bevel. That smooth it out nicely. Next, I'll select the small cylinder and mirror it over to the other side. Alright, now let's select this pipe and convert this into a mesh. Switch to face mode and first of all, let's clean up the face. I'm running a small chamfer here just to bring out some highlight and we did lose a bit of sharpness, so I'll select the front face and mark it as sharp. Then I'll select this edge loop and sharpen that as well for a crisp outline. Now, jump back to edge mode. I'll extrude this face and then select a few edges on the top and dissolve them, just to give it some flat surface. Finally, in object mode, I'll bring the cylinder forward like this, and I think we can even delete this one. It still has some bad shading, so to fix the geometry and shading issue, I'm going to select these two vertices and press J to join them. That connects them cleanly and helps maintaining a solid edge flow. To make sure everything connects properly, I'll add a loop cut here, then select these two vertices and J to join them. Let's add one more and then connect these two vertices too. That should tighten up the topology and we get a good shading. Now we select these middle edges and mark them as sharp to fix the shading problem. Switch to object mode. Let's move the spot slightly forward for a better alignment. Then I'll select the cylinder and position it right at the center of the pipe end. Let's scale the cylinder down a bit, then move slightly to the right and scale it up on the Z to stretch it vertically. That looks much cleaner now. Geometry fixed, shading smooth, and proportion balanced. So I'm going to end this part right here. In upcoming parts, we'll start adding more details, refine the overall design, and finally finish the complete model. Make sure you followed along till this point, because from the next part, things are going to get even more interesting.